done something right. You've reached Mr. H, and I will tell you what must be told to you, to allow you to delve deeper into these mysteries in our purportedly mechanical and predictable universe. Her name, Chastity, Chaz to some, Titty to others. Swing, 18, an average young woman of low breeding and lower educational aspirations, with a heart of gold and a charming face. She took what came, and what was to come would drive her unfortunate life to change forevermore. Location, south of Morgantown, West Virginia, USA. Date, fall 2015. Her name, Chastity Swing, was probably a sick joke of her lowbrow parents caught in the crush of Appalachia's dreaded poverty. Some said it was a first name prompted to bring some restraint to the libidinous connotations of their last name, but it didn't work. Chastity was quite experienced by the time of these events I'm conveying. Her name and her body made her extremely popular among boys who, enraged with hormones and low moral qualities, gave sweet Chastity a singular problem. And she always had a problem with the word no since she had blossomed. She never said yes to anyone, but she never denied anyone that was willing to put in a fair amount of effort across a few weeks of wooing and pleading. It got her into a lot of trouble as paramours struggled to contain her and make her their own, permanent and exclusive infatuate. Troubles with the other sex had led to Chastity being routinely beaten by her parents. Both were enraged by her hedonistic and wayward proclivities. It drove her from the house and into her car. She found an older-make Toyota Corolla that became a sanctuary, a home from home during the past couple years. Her parents' house, a meager abode on the side of a sparsely populated hill in northern West Virginia, was merely a place to run into for a few hours of sleep, caught while her parents dozed, and then she would take 5-minute showers, grab a can of soda, and run out before her folks would awake. Every other minute of the days behind her was spent in the wonderful solitude of her automobile. She knew her road into adulthood was going to be a disaster unless she could contain herself and push away anything or anyone that was abusive. Though a church-going girl, Chastity did run, in a commonly secular desperation, to a psychic/occult bookstore for supernatural help. The old woman behind the counter took favor on the young girl and sold her an odd tiny statuette enshrouded by small, beautifully prismatic crystals set to restrain a protective spirit held captive within the sculpture. It was related to Chastity that it would protect its immediate area and her with it. So Chastity glued it to the center front of her dashboard, above the stereo system. Though nothing came of it, the thought of the talisman made her feel more at home within her wheeled abode. As she graduated high school, no college in sight, poor Chaz decided to take a stand and push herself into a stable relationship with only one boy. She had learned to say no. That one boy she fell for and decided to stay with was himself a bit of a rake. His name, Tory Clatterbuck, and yet something about him, being so familiar in spirit to her, felt so right. She could never have been so wrong. Chastity had vowed to never be like her parents. She vowed to never be abusive, never physically harm herself, her lover, her future husband, or her children. No matter how events were to unfold or how upsetting those closest to her would become. Inwardly, it was a deal sealed in solid granite. Unfortunately, Chastity's one true love was exactly the opposite, and quite similar to her parents. The longer their relationship went on, the more violent he became. Tori was an ample, athletic boy of her age and class. Her high school sweetheart shared the last months of 12th grade with her, shared her backseat countless times, and shared a euphoric graduation. But he didn't share her optimism toward their life together, and was constantly troubled by the knowledge of her past ways. When out of sight, the young clatterbuck grew suspicious and jealous, returning to berate her. Then slowly, over time, to beat her ever more mercilessly. Regardless, her heart never grew cold. He had that something that was shared with her parents, the demon wrath. Within him she saw love of her parents, and the love of a chosen mate. It was a common spiral into disaster. She also blamed herself for everything that would transpire. If she hadn't been so promiscuous, she wouldn't be suffering at the hands of those she desired to please. As with many young people, the future wasn't so much a concern, and life was lived now. And the pain of the now would quickly vanish and subside after abiding the abuse and torture for a few scant minutes. Any heart on this earth would yearn to have saved this poor girl from the thrashing she was delivered almost daily inside her car by Chastity's enraged boyfriend. They increased with intensity until a ray of hope arrived one day as everyone from their school went off to their colleges and universities. Chastity and Tori were left alone in their age group, alone to form lives within the workforce and make individual paths to survival and prosperity. On that day, Tori came to Chastity's car with a smile and an eager bounce to his step. He sat next to her. His happiness was clearly singular to his history, and Chastity felt her heart leap for joy for her man's pleasant demeanor. Tori quickly shut his passenger door and produced a small box from his jacket pocket. Chastity was shocked. "Will you marry me, Chastity?" Tori asked with effervescent joy. "Yes," Chastity replied. This yes was a true yes, and there was no doubt within her about a recently learned no. They hugged and kissed, passionately fumbling and reclining to begin an act of deeper expression. That moment of bliss turned to horror for the poor girl as Tony towered over her and menacingly said, "But beware, if I ever catch you with another man from today forward, I will kill you." He began to brutally pulverize his fiancée with blows so hard that they slowly abraded her ability to resist. Her left orbit fractured, a couple ribs cracked. Her bruises, deep and black, were being created across her body. And when finished, he warned her once more and said he would be back with dinner shortly. Chastity lay reclined, bleeding from ears and nose and mouth. Welts darkened about her smooth white flesh. She was in too much pain to move or cry out to do anything. As Tori left the car, it started on its own. The keys were in the ignition, but nothing and no one was turning them. The passenger door slammed shut and the car jolted forward on the remote country road where the pair had parked, and a surprised Tori was left startled at first and shortly enraged at his wife-to-be. "You expletive, he cried in acrimony. "You are going to see another boy, you slut! Liar! I know you!" He sped to his pickup truck and blasted off in pursuit. Inside the Toyota, Chastity moaned in fear and agony as she tried to sit upright. Her feet were off the pedals, her hands off the wheel, and yet the car was driving and navigating the back roads of West Virginia at an ever-heightened speed. All she could do was cry and wonder what was happening as she passed out in pain. When the unfortunate girl came to and regained her senses, a panic struck her through and through. She was reclining in her car as it continued speeding along somewhere in the world. Throbbing in misery washed over her. Her form was broken and barely functional. Her car was driving itself somewhere. As she struggled to make sense of where she was and what time it was, she could make out the clock on her new stereo. She had slept through the night, and now it was a new day, around 10 a.m. Had she been driving for 16 hours? Or more importantly, what was driving her for 16 hours? She could barely see the gas level, but it appeared to be full. Odd, because she remembered it being only a third full when she parked earlier to meet Tori. Tori, she thought. Chastity turned her head and saw the ring in the open casing, lying in the sunlight on the passenger seat. It gleamed into her eye, and then, over the threshold of the passenger side window, sped into view Tori, leaning out of his pickup truck's driver window, screaming at her as he banged on the car door with a clenched fist. "Pull over!" he screamed into the wind. "Pull over, you expletive! I'll kill you, you expletive!" "Excuse me, I really cannot say these vulgar words with ease when grievously misused." Anyway, Chastity reacted inwardly with horror. Outwardly, she couldn't emote, her face swollen from the beating she had received. Chastity passed out again. Once more she awoke. It was now night. The clock read midnight. She had slept for another 14 hours, and her body was distressed with tightened muscles and skin. Everything was black, but the car continued to drive a steady course. Miss Schwing slowly struggled to right herself and look over the ledge of the car window to the side of her car. Her progress in traffic was sure and steady as it kept pace with cars around her. In the rear view, she saw Tori's pickup keeping up behind her in the dark. A glance, and she saw the tank was still filled to the top. How was her car refilling itself, she contemplated. Another quick glance sideways to a fleeting road sign. She was on I-80, turning onto the I-15 north around Ogden, Utah. She passed out again, reclining by the force of something other than her own doing. Once again, she awoke in the morning hours, coming into reality as her car turned steadily toward a new direction. She peered out to see I-84 become I-5 around Portland, Oregon. Before Chastity faded again, she thought she saw the digital readout on her radio say, "Hello, how are you?" It must have been a hallucination, she thought. The bruised and broken female collapsed backward again. And again she awoke. Chastity was now extremely thirsty. She was dehydrated and feeling it. Reaching in the back seat, she fumbled for a bottle of water and guzzled tenderly through bruised lips. Her left eye was swollen shut, but her right was fine. Outside the window was a huge cityscape. Signs read Los Angeles as her car continued to circle through the myriad highways, passing some cars, pacing others, and deftly avoiding disaster. Tori was somehow, undeniably behind her, chasing at a short distance. He had somehow kept up and followed faithfully across country. Had he filled up and caught up without ever getting sleep for these past days? Her car was filled up, but how? Chastity didn't have the physical power to worry or contemplate what was going on. She was merely going with the ride. Her radio flashed a digital message, getting her attention. "Turn on the radio," it read. She obeyed without hesitation. A staticky voice emerged over an unknown frequency. "Good morning, my sweet Chastity," it said in a squeaky cute voice. "Who?" she asked. "Don't worry, I'm with you. I have always been with you. I'm sitting on your dashboard," it answered. The girl focused to the dash to see the crystal-enshrouded token she had glued down. "Rest, poor child, rest," it continued. "I will save you from what would surely destroy you. I've watched you since you took me into your care. I loathed to help you at first, sickened by my enslavement to a stupid human. But I did what I was meant to do, and I grew to love you across these past 2 years. I love you, and I will never let you ever come to harm again until I am free to go my own way into the world without restrictions, until my side of this bargain is fulfilled." "But who are you?" Chastity croaked out in confusion. "What are you doing?" "I'm taking you to a new life," the voice enthusiastically blurted. "A new life free of all those things that would surely destroy you. You see, I'm a kobold, born with Fitra, the human-like state of innocence and freedom to choose my path of good or evil. Early in my life, I chose to be evil and harmed humans and spirits alike, lashing out and maiming anything I could, until I was imprisoned by a clever and perspicacious sage. He bound me to this tiny carving and made me become an unwilling guardian for whomever I was assigned, and I was assigned to you. I am yours, and you are mine until my job is done and my form is obliterated in a great deed of selflessness." "Kobold?" she asked. "When are we pulling over?" "As soon as you are ready," it replied. "Through you I have seen the errors of my past, and I have seen people possessed of the same anger and destructive will that infected me. Your life made me feel shame, and I have repented. I will no longer be the thing I was. I will be free, and I will cherish life, as we all should, and I will cherish and find a love of my own. But I want to go home," Chastity whined to the voice of the spirit guard. "No," it cooed back, mimicking her plea. "Never again, poor child. I have delivered you to a new life. I will leave you safe and fresh, birthing from this sanctuary in a new and wonderful life, free for you to mold into what you desire most." "But I don't understand," she cried in confusion. "I don't know anyone. I don't have any money. I don't even know anything about this place. And what about Tori? He'll kill me." "Him?" it growled through the radio. "If he attempts anything, I will do what must be done." "Let me out," the girl cried, fighting against physical pain to bang on the door. She tried the latch, but it was stuck. She pounded the petals, but they wouldn't budge, tugged at the wheel, but it was steadfast. Yet the car deviated swiftly and left the highway to drive off into a winding canyon road going north of the city. When in a distant enough area without traffic, the Toyota pulled over and stopped. Tori's pickup instantly pulled up to the passenger side and blocked any possible exit. He entered the vehicle's side door and pointed a reddened finger on a bald fist into Chastity's face. "You expletive," Tori shouted with fury and full voice. "I told you to never run off. I'll kill you. You know how much this stupid trip has cost me?" He quickly pulled back a fist to strike, but his target was gone. She had tumbled out of a mysteriously open driver's side door and spilled out onto the shoulder, flopping next to some browning foliage in the shape of a small bush mired in the pebbles and sand. And just as quickly the door shut before her fiancé could lash out. His passenger side entrance slammed shut with inhuman force behind him, and in uncontrollable rage he thrashed about, attempting to open doors that refused to obey. Chastity stood up to watch as he lurched about, fire in his eyes directed toward her. Their wedding rings rolled about on the seats, their diamonds glinting, unseen by him as he trampled them under his knees. And then an ominous and growing sound began to emit from the car. She stood back to watch the metal warp and slowly crinkle as the bumpers raised lightly and the bottom bowed toward the earth. A screeching sound of metal bent by Herculean effort from invisible hands blasted forth and echoed across the valley they were within. No traffic was present, no houses, no onlookers. Chastity stood agape, unable to understand what was transpiring. Her paramour was panicking, clawing to extricate himself from obvious doom, but it was no good. The Toyota slowly collapsed in on itself, the windows refusing to blow out, rather shrink into the door, which still contained the mass, as it balled inward from bumpers rolling upward into the roof and downward into the hole. Aside from the noise of the retching metal and horrified young man being compressed within, came an extremely loud radio voice above all else. "Farewell, my sweet human," the kobold had exclaimed. "Make your life your own and live well. I will cherish you forever." A split second later, and the gas tank opened from the bottom of the rear section of the car, and gasoline spilled under the ball of twisted metal. Tori's voice could still be heard inside, blood trickling from the glob of metal. And without hesitation, the gasoline ignited, and the car's new form was quickly engulfed by an intense flame, only centered on the remaining lump. Tori's cries turned to agony as the flames grew white-hot within seconds, and the metal continued to compact further, until no air was left within the shape. And then the fire blasted even hotter. So hot that Chastity had to move far, far away, as stray brush ignited and nearby sand turned to glass. Several minutes later, she was able to approach the diminished mass and the quickly extinguishing flames. Out of all that went into the inferno, merely a softball-sized clump of debris remained suspended above a glass platter on the side of the road. Within half an hour, the whole scene was exhausted. The road rehardened, the glass stiff and cold, and the lingering debris in the compacted form smoking in the center of it all. As she crept forward, brave enough to finally examine what was once her car, the blackened ball cracked open to reveal a magnificent diamond. It was a diamond produced from all the carbon within the car, a diamond formed from her erstwhile boyfriend's flesh and blood through the heat and flame and compression of the kobold's intervention. It sparkled furiously as had Tony's wrath, but it was the light of a fresh start in a new world. Chastity Schwing cradled the infinitely precious stone in her hands and slowly struggled to walk off into the future beyond the hills in front of her, on a new road to happiness. Like and subscribe before I die, and ring the little bell or you will surely go to hell.
Oh, we're telling spooky stories. This is not a spooky story. Oh, there's no way on the couch I can
say. It depends how you look at it. It is kind of spooky.
I guess so.
Wait, that's it? That's the end of the story?